Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a nearly 900-page policy playbook that's been making some serious waves, Project 2025. It is a super detailed roadmap for a potential conservative administration, and we are going to walk through exactly what's inside.
Right off the bat, you need to know that Project 2025 frames itself within a legacy of, well, success. It kicks things off by pointing to a similar playbook from 1981 that was made for the Reagan administration, claiming it was massively effective. The message here is crystal clear. This isn't just a collection of ideas, it's being presented as a proven strategy for making immediate and sweeping changes.
Okay, to make sense of this beast of a document, we've broken our explainer down into 5 key parts. We'll start with what Project 2025 actually is, then we'll look at its main target, the huge policy pillars it's built on, the plan for putting it all into action, and finally, the big promise it's making to the country. So, what is this thing that everyone's talking about? Let's get right to the core of it. Think of it like this. It's a massive, super detailed playbook, chapter by chapter, agency by agency. It's designed to let a new administration start reshaping the U.S. federal government from the moment they take office, without any of the usual startup delays. The whole point is to have the people and the policies ready to go on Inauguration Day. And this is really key. This whole idea isn't coming out of nowhere. It's a direct attempt to basically run a play that worked over 40 years ago, just updated for today. As you can see, the original mandate for leadership was a big deal. And the language in this new 2025 version, it's even bolder, framing its goal as, well, nothing less than a rescue mission for the entire country. Okay, so let's get into the central philosophy that holds this entire 900-page document together. Because to really get the solutions they're proposing, you have to first understand what the authors see as the #1 problem. So the document argues that the core problem with our government today is something it calls the administrative state. Now, that's their term for the huge federal workforce of career civil servants. The playbook doesn't see these employees as neutral people just carrying out policy. It frames them as an entrenched force that has its own agenda. According to Project 2025, this administrative state is the source of a whole laundry list of problems. The document says the bureaucracy is way too big, super inefficient, and is not accountable to the public at all. But it goes even further, alleging that this bureaucracy is actively pushing a woke agenda and fighting back against the policies of an elected conservative president. So the bottom line is this. The document's big, overarching promise is to basically shift power away from all these career government employees and put it back under the direct control of the president, who they argue is the only one who's actually accountable to the voters. Okay, so with that big goal in mind, tearing down the administrative state, the mandate then lays out its game plan. And it's built on 3 huge pillars of change that pretty much touch every single part of the government. And you can basically group all the thousands of recommendations into these 3 main buckets. The biggest chunk is focused on restructuring the power of government agencies right here at home. That's followed pretty closely by a major shift in foreign and defense policy, and then a really significant push on social and cultural issues. First up, Pillar 1, a complete overhaul of domestic agencies. A huge goal you see over and over in the text is an aggressive rollback of regulations. There's a specific target on environmental rules, all to boost fossil fuel production and, really, to shrink the EPA's power, bringing it back to what the authors call its congressionally sanctioned role. Then we have Pillar 2, which is all about foreign policy. And the playbook doesn't mince words here. It's explicit. China should be named the #1 priority for defense planning. And you see this focus on China pop up again and again in the chapters on the Departments of State, Defense, and Commerce. And finally, Pillar 3 dives headfirst into social and cultural issues. The document says flat out that the overturning of Roe v. Wade is just the beginning. It calls for a new administration to use its power to create strong protections for the unborn, to fight wokeism, and to reinforce what it calls traditional family structures. And just to give you a taste of how specific this thing gets, look at these directives. The plan calls for targeting wokeism at the Department of Justice, working with Congress to get rid of the Department of Education entirely, reversing policies on transgender service members at the Pentagon, and even decertifying a major union at Homeland Security. It's incredibly detailed. So you might be wondering, how on earth do they plan to pull all of this off? Well, the answer is actually pretty simple, and it's repeated over and over again in the document. Personnel.
The authors believe that having the right people in the right jobs is the key to absolutely everything. The authors point back to the last conservative administration and say, look, a huge mistake was not getting our people in place fast enough. They argue the slow rollout basically allowed career staff and political holdovers to undermine the president's agenda from the very start. Project 2025 is designed to make sure that never happens again.
So to avoid that, they've laid out this very precise step-by-step playbook for day one. It starts with a total hiring freeze across the government to stop outgoing staff from burrowing in. Then it calls for moving senior career officials out of key leadership jobs and immediately installing pre-vetted loyalists deep into the agencies. And this is critical. This includes deputies who don't need Senate approval, so they can get to work instantly. All right, so we've seen the target, the pillars, and the how. But what's the ultimate vision here? What's the big promise for America at the end of all this? The playbook really frames its entire agenda as a choice between two completely different paths for the country. On one side, you have economic freedom, where, quote, everyone is in charge. And on the other, you have socialism, where elites are in charge and, the document claims, everything got worse. It's presented as a very stark binary choice.
And this one quote from the intro really just sums it all up. This isn't about just tweaking a few policies here and there. It's a vision for a complete conservative restoration of American society. A plan to, in their words, rescue, reclaim, revive, and ultimately defeat what it calls the anti-American left.
And that really brings us to the heart of the matter. At its core, this nearly 900-page document is an attempt to answer one of the most fundamental questions in American politics. The mandate for leadership offers one incredibly detailed, incredibly ambitious answer, and it really leaves all of us to consider the implications of what a transformation like that would mean.